Okay, so part one of this teaching called dual frame of reference, truth and moved. So what I mean by that is there's two frame of references we can go by in our thinking, which is really the whole thing I was going to say, and how we live. But of course, we live based on how we think. So you hear about Jesus, and then you read the Bible, and you might get excited. Some people don't always get excited. They're just inquisitive. And there's maybe a combination of the two things. You go to the church, and you hear worship music, and you get really inspired. And I can even reflect back to times I was just so moved by the music. I was so impacted. I was so excited about who God was. I was so excited about all the truths I was hearing, and I was believing them that I'm going to get to go to heaven. I don't have to worry about things anymore. We all have things we're hurting from in our life, whether emotionally or physically, mentally, however you want to word it. We're suffering, or we have suffered. And you get in this place, these buildings that we call church, and you hear this music, and you get really excited about who God is. Maybe it's in the lyrics, maybe you heard some people talk about it, it's in your thoughts, these words revolving around in your mind that are comforting, or promises, hope, and all that pain that we felt that I kind of just hit on. We kind of go, oh, it's all worth it, or God cares about all that. And all of this is true, largely. You can go look in Scripture. And by the way, always check everything I say against Scripture. And do your own studying. I don't believe we should trust men. We can trust that they've said something that's scriptural, but, you got to check the Bible, make sure that's true. Anyway, so here I am in church, and super excited to go to church, be around other Christians, and worship God, and with the music really lending to that for me to get super excited. And I remember many times I'm brought to tears, they're tears of joy, of security, that I can rest in God because of what Christ did for us. Absolutely true, too. I really believe in this to this day. I really believe in it. The thing that happened along the way, though, while I was just so stoked on God, so grateful and adoring Christ, even before I watched The Passion. I mean, how many of us have watched that movie, The Passion, and then you're just like in this bow down adoration towards Jesus. Even now I'm kind of feeling moved. Just this amazing story that you believe now that means everything to you. It's just so wonderful. And you get so moved by it. So, but again, somewhere along the way, I was saying that I start to hear this false dichotomy. So, you'll probably hear me say that frequently if you hear any other teachings that I give. Because what happens is people will say, it's not this, it's that. They don't throw out the word truth, mind you. It doesn't happen. You don't hear that usually. You'll hear stuff like, I'm not so into theology, I'm into love. Well, the word theology means the is God. And, we're monotheistic. We believe in one God, mono singular. And anything about God, ology is study of. If you're talking about him, it's kind of a study of his character. It's all theology as a Christian. So when I finally started hearing those kind of false dichotomies, meaning false dichotomy means they're creating two things that you have to choose from. For those of us who didn't know that term, that was new to me recently. So it's not two things we have to choose from. I'm going to bring this whole thing home and bring us to it's one. It's a singular frame of reference. This dual frame of reference we get to keep. It's all part of the one. But so somewhere along the way, here I am in church, and I'm super moved by music. I got to where if I didn't hear worship music, does anybody have this problem too? that it was getting flatter. Things were getting deflated as a believer for me. I'd read the Word, it's your duty, or it's good for you, and all that's true, and I liked it and enjoyed it. But until I could put on some music, I wouldn't really get back to that place. My friend calls it the sweet spot, where I'm just stoked on God, and I'm like, now I really believe it all better because I'm feeling it and I'm thinking it. And there was something to that, too. It was like, wow, this really works. Put on a worship song. I was going to put on a Cutlass song. Have anybody heard of Cutlass? And as I heard it this morning, and it moved me. I'm telling you, it did. The lyrics were pretty sound biblically, too, in case for those of us already going in our head. The music has to be biblical, at least. Well, it's got to glorify God, right? Of course. Most Christians argue that. Most Christians don't say it has to be biblical, but... So I'm getting moved. To keep us on track here. And to the point where it was the false dichotomy, the two sides became real to me when people were saying, I didn't want this fact mentality. Here's that word, fact. Black and white. Had to be more colorful. I got to be a pro at telling people the whole emotional part of being a believer is everything. You got to be, once you contemplate and behold Christ, you get so stuck on him in your mind, but they wouldn't say it that way. They'd say it in a more mystical way, which was really interesting. You just behold him, which is scriptural, rarely explained, and we all kind of perceive it our own way. We're just kind of getting this mystical state where you're just beholding who Christ is. There is something biblical and true to that, by the way. But where you're moved, and especially with the music, accompanies that, and we all sit there and praise this new gift we have, and the facts, getting so fact-oriented, isn't really relevant almost, especially, again, theology, not just versus love, but the love now is more, I got to be moved. Until you get moved by Christ, emotionally moved, you haven't got it yet. So it was this feelings thing, and I've got this kind of funky here, if you can read it. Feeling or fact, but again, they weren't going to use the word truth or fact. They probably wouldn't throw that out, but they're saying that it's all about feeling. And if I'm going to promote things that are more like biblical doctrine and Bible verses and truth, and then you'll hear it's truth and love, of course, we need love. But isn't that the truth, that we need to be loving? I don't know how they create that false dichotomy and we get so easily convinced. Maybe the music is such a big tool. But, so the point here is, we end up, you're any typical church, and you're searching always after that feeling of how wonderful God is and how you get, exhilarated from it. And there's music out there that's so repetitious, it tries to conjure up like heavy emotional, experiential information, thinking and feeling and scenario for yourself. And the ones that are very reformer-like, doctrinal, very dry, just not feelings-oriented at all. There's even extremes there where they're like, forget feelings altogether, which I don't agree with, but... and then, see, now we have a perfect thing. We can point to the people who are anti-feelings. They're like stoic Christians. And they got it wrong and say it's all about feelings. So now I got to have this camp. Now, the funny thing in the regular church is they'll maybe say there's a couple ideas they're going from, but the typical thing in a regular church you go to really that's really driving the whole ship. That's the frame of reference is emotion. So I will try not to do too much indicting on that, what's going on today, but I just want to highlight that it's both. It's both. Both are relevant and wonderful and very important. So I'm going to eat a little lunch and we'll get back to part 2.